Welcome to the Knock On Effect podcast, where concussion meets conversation, with Adam Wood and Cliff Butler. Brought to you by Safeguarding You and the Melbourne Headache and Concussion Group. Let's get into this. All right, boys and girls, mums and dads, welcome to the Knock On Effect podcast. This is our very second episode. You're with Adam Wood and Cliff Butler. Great to have you here, Cliff. How you doing, mate? I see you're wearing a lacrosse t-shirt. Tell us what that means.
Mate, we're pumped at the moment. We've got a lot of teams overseas at the moment, representing Australia internationally. So today we've got the women's sixes team over in China, and they're taking on the powerhouse that is the USA. So some absolutely fantastic homegrown kids over there. Shout out to Mim Suarez Jury. She's running back and forward over there, no doubt, as we speak. And we've also got the boys under 20s team over there. Got Jake Mannix and a few of the other Willie boys, Angus Menzies and Brycey over there. Super proud of those guys. They're in South Korea. And we've got a men's sixes team over as well. And we've also got, for the first time ever, an under 16s kind of future stars team heading over, boys and girls. They're heading over to South Korea as well. So busy time for Lacrosse Australia. The lacrosse is in the Olympics in 2028. And it's just for such a small kind of sport in Australia, it's great to see that we're performing on such an amazing stage. So hopefully everyone tastes some success and no one gets knocked out. That's the key.
Yes.
That's how we go.
Yes.
But
Mate,
good luck to everyone there. Yeah.
I lived in the States when I was 21, and I saw firsthand just how, a country that supports lacrosse and where it is a bigger sport, and it's a crazy sport. I love it. It's so much fun to watch. The athleticism is just off the charts, and yeah, I mean, bringing it back to us, mate. Yeah, the risks are real, and I'm sure you've seen some nasty concussions out on the field.
Yeah, there's been a couple here or there, nothing too nasty. I think the sports guys usually tend to recover pretty well. There's a good drive to get back, great support. Obviously, we're here doing a podcast about it, and there's a lot of attention, obviously, within Australia at the moment and America around concussion. So everyone's trying to do their best to support these athletes when they do get injured. But touch wood. Let's hope that the Aussie girls over there today do their best, and we're looking for some Bonnie U magic and some magic from the girls over there. So hopefully, Steph and Georgia and the girls get it done.
Brilliant. I love it. All right. Well, good segue, mate. We're on episode 2. We've got a lot to cover today. We're going to get into the weeds and around really concussion in sport. And so with that, let me get started. Let's get into this. All right, so we're here to talk about concussion management in sport, Cliff, and we're going to cover 4 pretty important topics. PlayHQ Guidelines for anyone in the AFL world or certainly in Australia that's working in the PlayHQ Gameday platform. They'll have noticed that there is been an introduction into concussion management incident reporting practices within PlayHQ, so we're going to touch on that. We're going to deep dive some of the Gameday processes and then the first 24 hours and how you handle it. And I'll throw over to you, mate, because this is the meat and the potatoes of managing concussion for the parents, for the trainers, in the real environment on game day. And then we'll talk a little bit around Safeguarding You, what we're doing in this space and how we're helping some clubs and leagues in particular. You want to summarise any of that, mate, for us before we get cracking?
No, look, I think the main thing for us today is, or for me at least, is to talk about those game day processes. Obviously, we're both involved in football clubs down at You're at Frankston, I'm at Williamstown. And just shout out to those 2 clubs as well, because they've done it. They've just been fantastic in leading the way, pioneers in this space. I know that I've baseline tested all of the under 14 girls and boys and the under 16 girls and boys. And I know you've done the same down at Frankston there. And I think that's something we probably need to touch on at some point through this podcast, and maybe it's the next podcast, is the importance of baseline testing and clubs being proactive in this space. And it's just so helpful. I've had a couple of concussions this week actually with the Williamstown team there, and just having that baseline really helped the diagnostic process. It really helps the player and the parent really see objectively that the player is a little slower either on their neurocognitive testing or their balance testing. And so it really takes that diagnostic process to the next level. But then we're also got that benefit of then when we return to play, which I know we're going to talk about probably in our third podcast. It really helps with then guiding that return to play, because you've got to get those numbers kind of back to that baseline testing. So it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be cumbersome. We do it very simply and easily with a fantastic application on your phone. And it just helps everybody feel a little bit easier about the process. But yeah, number two there, Gameday Processes. I really want to help today clarify to the mums and dads that have put their hands up to be sports trainers. Shout out to you just now on that. We want to help you feel confident, competent, and comfortable today, making the call about whether a child is removed from play and ultimately then put into potentially 21-day concussion protocols, which is serious as well, or whether they go back on the ground. And so if we can help you in any way today with this podcast, that would be my number one goal for today.
I love it. All right, mate, let's get cracking. So PlayHQ, you're familiar with this. Again, anyone who's an administrator, obviously, if they're in the concussion space, they'll be aware of this. But a little bit like how if a player is reported, they go to a tribunal and they are suspended. In the PlayHQ world, players are removed from a team sheet. And so they cannot play for the week or two or three that they get suspended. What they've introduced recently is the same sort of protocol for concussion. And so if a team manager or an official in the club or the league recognizes that there is a suspected concussion of a player, they will create an incident report for a concussion, and that will immediately remove the player from the team sheet for until such time as they provide a medical clearance for return to play. They've released two guidelines of what that looks like, and you can see here on the slide there's a player profile guide and there's a league and a club admin guide. And so obviously there's slightly different functions, but it's revolving around the same development. On this slide, for those people listening, there's really two primary functions, and that is that you confirm a suspected concussion by creating an incident. You fill out the details. The player is notified. The TM still has access to this. The coach, the club has access to this incident to monitor that they are removed from team sheets. And then at the end of the process, once the player has gone to preferably an allied health professional who knows about concussion and gets a diagnosis, if they're immediately returned to play, then they just get a medical clearance. They upload it into PlayHQ. The team manager would cite that they have the clearance to return to play. Once they click that button, the player is then returned to the team sheet, and then they're allowed to play. If obviously there is a concussion confirmed, well, then they need to follow the stages or the graded return to play, and this still remains. So PlayHQ have introduced a really important feature that ensures we're not putting potentially concussed players back on the field too early, and that there is some level of governance and oversight that we recognise something, and then the player takes the responsibility to get a return to play or a medical clearance. It's scratching the surface, really, in terms of proper concussion management. But what are your thoughts on this, mate? You've heard about it as well. Any comments?
Yeah, look, it's an amazing outcome this week. There's a lot of buzz around junior clubs and local clubs, but it's not it's not the full box and dice here. It definitely is awesome, and I commend PlayHQ for what they've done here, stepping into this realm and kind of assisting clubs. But I think there's a lot of work up to the diagnosis point. So we're kind of going this, for me, this goes from, all right, diagnosis and then kind of return to play. There's a lot of moving parts in and amongst that.
Well,
So
not even that doesn't even start at diagnosis, mate. This starts at suspected concussion, which is great that that's where they want us to look at it. But then there's a big chasm between that and return to play.
100%. So, what I want to know is though, and this is probably, here we go, we're going footloose here, is suspected concussion, or who's putting the suspected concussion in? So we all know that sports trainers, parents, and even the sports trainer at the Div 1 league on the weekend, they're not actually trained or not approved to confirm a concussion. So is what you're saying, Adam, that if someone gets hit on the weekend or they're suspected, bang, there we go, they come off. Does the TM that night load up a suspected concussion into the system? what then happens from there? Is it that then you go to the GP on Monday, or you come and see me on Monday and I make a definitive yes or no, and then it's then either proceed to 21 days or you're good to go, no dramas. Is that what happens with this system?
Yep. Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Look, presumably on the back of having done a head impact assessment or a CRT6 assessment, should be the protocol, that identifies a suspected concussion. And then it's up to each club. Have they given all of their trainers, their TMs and coaches, a CRT6 form or an AFL's head impact assessment form? Have they been instructed to use it? Is there a policy from the club that says you must do this because we as a club, we stand for proactive concussion management. So there's a lot of loose areas around that. But yes, the idea is once they have deemed that there is a suspected likely concussion or potential concussion, they create the incident report and the player's immediately removed from the team sheet. And that's when the onus goes onto the player and the parents to obviously go and see a GP or a professional to get that diagnosis. And until they do, they can't return.
Which I think that's pretty awesome. Like I think that's pretty good because I think there is a lot of underreporting going on at the moment. There are a lot of people that do get a head knock and then kind of just want to sweep it under the carpet. I definitely noticed in my clinic when we went from 14 days to 21 days, we would get a lot of phone calls on the Thursday. So when we were 14 days, everyone would ring us on Monday and go, had a knock, want to know what's going on. What we started getting now with the 21 days is had a knock, waited until the symptoms emerged. And as we saw in our last podcast, the symptoms usually emerge around day 5 and or the worst at day 5. And so then you'd have that phone call on Thursday going, I don't feel so good. But there's so much you can do between day 1 and day or Monday and Thursday to help assist, the healing, physiological healing of the brain. So you've lost those kind of first 3 or 4, 5 days.
Yep.
But no, look, I like this. I do think there is a lot of ways that we can make this better. I think there's a lot of, processes that we could be doing to help because this is pretty serious, right? Like, so from what you've just told me there is if you suspect a concussion, you upload it. So you want to be bloody pretty sure that person needs to be put up and loaded up into that system. So this escalates it up a level. So to me, that then means that the moment from impact until uploading on Sunday night by the child safety officer or your club TM or whatever, there's a lot of moving parts in that element there. So I would want to make sure that Jane, the mum, who's a sports trainer on a Sunday, feels very confident in recognizing concussion, that she's confident using a CRT6. And that is then because it can go either way, right? Where we're actually underreporting. So, it's all right. He just had a bit of a headache. Don't worry about it. Or are we then, oh no, we better put everyone into that process, which then starts that off. So that's why we're here today, is to talk about that CRT6, to talk about that recognition. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great segue, mate. So the very next slide, as we know and we've discussed, mate, we've sort of thought through what are the different stages of a concussion protocol beyond what PlayHQ may demand or dictate, what in accordance with best practice guidelines from the AIS and the AFL and many other sports around the world that I know rugby or the ARU and World Rugby have been, very forward thinking around concussion protocols. But really for the average Jane, the average president, these are sort of some of the steps that we've talked through, and I'll just run through them super quickly. We're going to touch on some of the things and the features that I guess that are included in Safeguarding You. But even if you're not using Safeguarding You, these are the required functions. So if we look at the start, baseline testing, well, if you've done that, fantastic. You can actually make a diagnosis and a determination with actual data rather than just guesswork, or best practice guesswork. So let's say the incident's recognised on the field. What do you do then? Well, you need to conduct. Well, in this example here, Safeguarding You, we've got a QR code. You scan that, and then you conduct a concussion assessment, which essentially monitors red flags, symptoms, and then you make a determination. Ultimately, the prevailing rule, when in doubt, sit them out. You would then create an incident report. The club needs to know about this. How else do you manage the return to play of that player? At that point, according to PlayHQ's process, that's when you would lodge a concussion incident in PlayHQ once you've identified that there are symptoms or a red flag, and therefore there is a suspected concussion. Following that, you would want to send the parents or the players a what to do next form of sorts. What can we do? And you can speak in detail to that, mate. Then we want to recommend the virtual diagnosis. So actually confirm. Obviously, go to a GP if they know what they're talking about, or a allied health professional. Or what we're trying to create is a virtual diagnosis to make it more accessible, scalable, and affordable for people to do the right thing. And again, we'll get into that in a bit more detail. If it's confirmed, well, then there's a treatment plan. How do we manage those graded stages of return to play, which we'll touch a little bit more on this episode, but clearly in a lot more detail on the next. And then when they're cleared by a doctor, then they get approved on PlayHQ to go back to play. And so you can just see in this one page that there are very many steps into doing the right thing and managing concussion effectively. Where does that take you, mate? Where does your mind go looking at that? And obviously moving into the next slides and talking points where we go into a bit more detail of game day immediate response.
Yeah. Look, I think it's fantastic to have this actually written out like this for people, and to make it really, really simple. That just makes it super clear to me what steps are involved there. And again, the purpose of today's podcast is to give parent trainers, or even, sports trainers, a clear and definitive guide of how things should go, and how it all works. Yeah. So I love this, mate. I think it's fantastic. And hopefully it makes it. Look, sorry if you're listening, if you're on Spotify going for a jog, but
Well, you'll find
yeah.
it exactly, and look, you'll find this on the socials. We've created Insta pages, and so if you're looking for a concussion protocol, step-by-step, 10-step plan, find us on socials. We'll try and put a link to it in the comments and the description. But yeah, so let's move on, mate, and get to the meat of what this podcast is all about. And let's start with Gameday Processes. And we can see here, and for those who can't see, there's 4 steps to this, which you're going to take us through in detail. Recognize, remove, assess, and refer. Let's start with recognize, mate. What do we do? What does that mean?
Well, you've stuffed me up there, mate, because you put an A in there. It was looking good with the R's, mate. You've ruined my sense of equilibrium there with the A, but mate, you put me off. But no, look, mate, I think recognizing, it's watching the game, keeping your eyes on the game, and seeing the impact can really help with the diagnostic procedure for me, or workup. So if we video most of our games, and to see the actual impact definitely helps me with my diagnostic workup, because then I can see what happens immediately after, because we've got to be watching. So you've got to be watching what the player does. So does the player get, how is the player hit? And then what happens to the player after that? Are they lying motionless on the ground? Because we're going to start talking about that CRT6 in a second, and what the steps are there. Now, obviously, one of the things that I just want to briefly touch on at the moment, and why it's so important that you watch what happens immediately after the impact, is because there's certain things that dictate, or certain red flags that would dictate that you call an ambulance. So, and you don't need to call an ambulance for every single concussion or suspected concussion, because we all know our ambos are working so hard at the moment. And if you can recognize and watch and be confident, yes, there are times when we do need to call an ambulance. And one of those would be if the player is lying motionless on the ground, right? If they are not moving, if they have been knocked out, then yes, you will see in a second in the CRT6 that is a reason to call an ambulance, right? So it's really important that we're watching immediately after what happens. Did they get up? Were they dazed? Were they shaky on their feet? What is happening? But also it's really important in this aspect as well that we follow our doctor's ABC. So you go through your level 1 sports training. Make sure that you're not moving a player who may have a spinal injury. So you need to make sure that's the first, paramount thing that we do is there's a safety. And then moving on from there, you need to then recognize, okay, this could be a potential concussion. What did I see? And what did I see of the player after they were coming off the ground?
Awesome. Love it, mate. And I was glad to see I did my first aid again at the start of the season. So I was great to see the Doctors ABC. In fact, I've got the poster on my wall right behind me, and now it's a Doctors ABCD with DFib.
There
So
you
the
go.
question is, do you
Yeah,
have a
well, that's
DFib
it.
in the
Defib.
club? All right. So
Yep.
to keep this punchy, mate, and keep people going, let's move on to the second stage, remove.
So obviously, again, if it's safe to remove them, you've removed the player. So you're seeing them come off, you're seeing how they're coming off the ground, and then usually what I would do is I would sit the player in a maybe in the club rooms or somewhere quiet. So this gets a little bit difficult, I know, with parents because you're a trainer and you're not meant to leave the ground. So this is why it's really good to have backup trainers. You might hand the bib over at this point, and someone goes with the child to or the player to the rooms. You want a quiet space, and really what you want is about 10 minutes. You really want to sit them for about 10 minutes. I've definitely seen with a few lacrosse players that they've had a hit, they've come off, they've sat down, nah, Cliff, I'm fine. And then I go, just have a seat there for 10 minutes, and they go, oh, I'm not so good anymore. Right. So really want to wait that 10-minute window there before you start doing any kind of concussion assessments. And then you would perform the CRT assessment. Um, Obviously, when the player immediately comes off, you probably want to make sure that you've ruled the red flags out, right? So, and that's the call an ambulance section. So, everyone's pretty hot calling an ambulances with a head not a head impact, but there's obviously reasons why you would do that. So, if the player's completely knocked out, you're calling an ambulance. If they've got seizures or fits or anything like that, yes, calling an ambulance. We've got neck pain and tenderness, and we can go through loss of consciousness, deteriorating mental state, weakness or tingling in the legs or one arm, repeated vomiting. So repeated vomiting, a severe or increasing headache, right? Not just a headache, it's got to be getting worse. It's got to be severe, like 8, 9, 10 out of 10 stuff. If they become combative or restless or agitated, or if they've got a skull fracture, if you've got a visible deformity in the skull. So neck pain's also another reason as well. So these are all reasons why you would call an ambulance. In the absence of these reasons, then I would suggest that you let our ambos attend to more pressing issues. But as always, though, if you're concerned or worried, then you need to do what's right for you. So again, encourage people to best
And you
practice
made you made
their.
a really good point in the last pod, mate, around one of the primary reasons you're looking for these, and that is a brain bleed, right? Like
Yep.
it's impossible to see where there's a brain bleed from the outside. So these are likely symptoms or potential symptoms of a brain bleed, which is why you need that immediate urgent care of straight
Yep.
to hospital. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And look, in the absence of those symptoms, you are still monitoring the player for 4 hours as a minimum, right? So if you went to the hospital, you'd usually be monitored for 4 hours. So if in the absence of those symptoms, I encourage everyone to be aware of what they are and be ready to monitor those if your player or your child should actually receive a head impact and they're released under suspicion rather than sent to hospital. You still need to be observing for these for up to 4 hours.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously, in the absence of those red flags and the necessity to go to hospital, you've got the symptoms that you're looking for. So you would then work. And look, this tool is so good. It was it's been developed by the concussion community out there. It's the latest one, the CRT6, which is superseding the CRT5. So it's called a concussion recognition tool. So it's for lay people. It's for parents, coaches, sports trainers, right? And then you would look through and look for the visible cues. And we've, if you've, I can hold a copy of it if you like. If we haven't got it, oh no, I can't because we've got the background there. But yeah, so you're looking for those visible cues. You're looking for the symptoms again. So those symptoms are kind of dizziness, blurred vision. They're sensitive to light. They've got difficulty concentrating, difficulty remembering. And then you move on to the awareness part where you kind of start asking some questions. It's who are we playing today? What ground are we at? What day is it? What was the score? Who did you play last week? And so basically, if you can tick a yes to any of these kind of questions, so the visible cues of concussion, if they're falling unprotected onto the playing surface, if they're slow to get up, if they're disorientated or dazed or blank, if you tick a yes to that, you just need one yes, and we're going to sit you out. If you don't see any of those things, and then they start to say, "Oh, I feel pretty tired, and my head hurts," well, then tick tick. you're out. So it's a really simple system for parents, players, trainers to be confident using. Takes you through and basically, I want to say, de-escalates the situation. Are you going to hospital? No. Are there visible cues? Yes or no. Are there symptoms? Yes or no. And then can are you aware of where you are and what you're doing? And any no or any, oh, I don't know what the score is, you're kind of definitely suspecting a concussion.
Right. Got it. And then the action taken from there should be when in doubt, sit them out and
You're sitting them
ref-
out. Yeah, they're sitting out, and then they're being the next slide is they're being referred. Yeah.
yep. Yep. To someone who can actually help them, right? To diagnose
And
and
absolutely. There, look, obviously, with a Melbourne Headache and Concussion Group, we'd love you to come and see us. We work virtually and we work in person down in Williamstown. It's a beautiful day in Williamstown today, nice and sunny, no wind. So great time to come down and catch up with the crew down there. But yeah, basically, there's a lot of really passionate concussion physios, osteos out there that are willing to help you. So if you can't find somebody in your area, then by all means, we'll jump online and we'll go through and we'll work through the diagnosis and the protocol with you. But there was a stat somewhere that I read that there's only 60% of GPs in Western Australia that would be comfortable diagnosing and then working with a concussion. So that's just over half. So and I know the GPs that I've spoken to in person. They don't feel they don't feel super confident with it. I had an incident the other day where a GP, tried to tell the person that I'd sent for clearance that, day one started, when the diagnosis started or something like that, like they didn't have their days quite right. And so, it meant that the player was going to miss their 21-day return. So I just think, I'm always about, letting, experts do their work. So someone who's passionate and trained up in concussion, that's who I'd be seeking out to go and see and go and manage it. And the Melbourne Headache and Concussion Group, what we do is we prepare all the documentation. We do regular checks and we'll go through this in a second. We do regular kind of objective measures and we provide all the information to GPs to make their job as easy as possible. We really want to reduce the burden on our GPs. They're busy as it is. And if you can turn up to your GP with a cover letter, the timeline, the dates, the times, and all of your testing showing that you've been symptom-free for 14 days, then it makes their life a lot easier as well. So,
yep.
and
Yep.
obviously, yeah.
Well, and you've touched on a lot of this, mate. The next slide for us, first 24 hours is obviously super important. Some of this you've already talked about, monitoring for first 4 hours, but do you want to walk us through these important points?
The first 24 hours are pivotal. And what we see, in studies is saying that if you don't kind of respect the first 24 hours, that actually your symptoms can actually last a lot longer than if you did. So, what you do immediately after the impact is really important. So we don't sit in a dark room anymore, Adam. That's in the past. That's like saying that you need to lay in bed when you've got a sore lower back. You are allowed to do what would you say, sub-symptom activity. So I'm not saying that you're going to jump on TikTok for 4 hours or you shouldn't, binge watch a Netflix series on the day off because it is boring. It is really boring when you've got a concussion. You've got to sit at home and you've got to rest. But we encourage people to see what they can do within limitations. No worries. Text message your friends. Do a Snapchat if you need to, my kids are going to cringe at that, Adam. But you can still keep in contact with your friends. And if you can go out for a walk. You might need to stick your sunnies on because it's a bit bright outside, but you want to get up and you want to kind of get moving a little bit, but you do want to be resting as well. So that's it there. And then basically within kind of 1 or 2 days, you really should be getting up and getting moving and getting going. Now, sleep is a big thing. We used to say you can't let a concussed player sleep. After you've monitored them for the initial 4 hours, absolutely they can sleep. And in that first 24 to 48 hours, if you want to have an afternoon nap, no worries. Have an afternoon nap because fatigue is definitely one of those symptoms that we see. But after that kind of first 48 hours or so, We really want to be getting back to kind of activities of daily living, normal circadian rhythms. So we want to try not to sleep if we don't have to. And we really want to try to get back to our normal wake and sleep patterns.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. All right. The next stage of this, I guess, once we've gotten past 24 hours, which we let's say we have been diagnosed, and we're going to break this one down in a lot more detail because there is a lot in it. But again, to try and, I guess, keep this one short and sharp, do you want to walk us through what these different stages of return to play or the stages of graded return to play revolve around?
Absolutely. And I think this is one of those things again that hey, it's great. PlayHQ have saying you need to go through the graded return to play and you need to see your GP and then you need to upload your GP certificate. But how do we know that they've been done? If I can just go to my local general practitioner, if I've got a good relationship, I can just say, hey, GP, I've done everything. Oh, I'm symptom free. I'm all good to go. Yeah, just sign me off. And that may not be the case. So I guess where we come in at Safeguarding You and at the Melbourne Headache and Concussion Group is that we actually step you through these. We walk through these with you to make sure, because to go from each stage, you need to clear certain parameters. So, the relative rest one's easy enough. But then, the recovery, you need your symptoms to not be escalating by kind of a 3 out of 10 to go to the next stage. To go to stage 3, which is that going back to training with your friends and at your footy club, is you need to be symptom free. From that Monday of the second week, you need to be symptom free. So there's a lot in this, and I definitely think we should cover it in another podcast. But it is something that I believe everyone needs support to step through. So you need to be working with somebody to work through this. And I really think that the Safeguarding You platform is a great platform to assist you with this and to keep you accountable because, you can just kind of, tell porcupines and rock up to your GP, and away you go.
Well, thank you for a shameless plug and segue to the last few slides, and we'll wrap this up super quick, guys. Look, we're not here to sell anything. I'm working with Cliff because we both trying to solve this problem, and we're super concerned about accelerating concussion in sport. And what I saw, working with clubs at committee levels was that there really is a knowledge gap, and there's very much a systems gap of how do we manage these things, whether it's child safety and clearly concussion as a subset of that in local footy and local sporting clubs. And so Safeguarding You is my business. It's a platform that helps clubs and leagues manage safeguarding issues. It's club governance, it's continuous improvement, but it starts with different programs, a little bit like a learning management system where you can do courses, or you can do programs with us, and you could do child safeguarding, you could do concussion, or we've just launched a new club governance program which looks at all the executive committee member positions and roles. In it now, with the clubs and the leagues that we're working with, we've built out an incident management system, and then at the request of them, we've actually automated much of what you would see in the CRT6 or the AFL's head impact assessment form. So we got a horse in this race. We get this because we work in clubs. We care about the kids, and we could see that there's really nothing out there for them at the moment. And they're really, the child safety officers, the concussion officers, clubs that really care about this, they're just drowning in the fear of not doing things the right way. So that's what this podcast is about. It's not about flogging anything. It's about trying to keep everyone armed and dangerous with the knowledge they need so that they can act when they need to. Just to show you a couple of little things, sideline assessments. So there's lots in the platform for clubs and leagues, but this is where a coach, a trainer, a TM, instead of picking up a pen and paper and filling out a CRT6 form that they may or may not do anything with after that, you can scan a QR code and follow the similar prompts. So what are the incident details? What are the red flags and symptoms, if any? What was the next actions taken? And then you submit it. And so the club's actually got something to see and oversee and monitor and really have transparency and visibility around this. For the players' health and well-being, but also to protect them down the track if and when we see escalating lawsuits coming from law firms. There's also a governance risk and a compliance focus around the platform that helps clubs as well be better for their players. You can see here there's a couple of screens. Sorry, mate, go on.
I just want to jump in there as well. The thing I'm obviously, we met at a lunch, right? I think we mentioned this last time, and that lunch is on today, probably wrapping up about now. So, It's a brief shout out to the Concussion Legacy Foundation lunch crew down there, and to the crew from Happy Lids as well. We love the Happy Lids hat. I've got to fish mine out, and that might be what I'm wearing next time. But I think what I like about the Safeguarding You platform, Adam, is that a mum who's a sports trainer can turn around and scan the QR code that hopefully is sitting in her trainer's pack and just be guided simply through the steps, right? So, and you just go through one by one and you just go through. And if you answer yes to any of those steps, like again, the red flag questions. Yes, we're calling an ambulance. We've got this under control. No, we haven't got any red flags. We don't need to call an ambulance. We're now going to sit that player for 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like, right,
Yep.
off we go. Then they can just work through those questions. So, recognize, yep, cool. Are there red flags? No, no emergent care needed. Let's take Johnny to the rooms and sit him for 10 minutes, and then we'll start asking him the questions, And
Yep. The
while he's
symptoms
sitting there, you
checker,
can,
and yep.
and
Yep.
then so you start sitting there and you go, did I see that Johnny was wobbly on his feet? Did I see that he was lying motionless? Was he disorientated? What happened there? And you're just clicking through on your phone quite simply
Yep.
these questions. And if there's none of those, you get to the next bit. Does he is he confused? Is he disorientated? Is there blurred vision? So these are the things you're probably asking Johnny a little bit more. But I just feel like you've got that support in your pocket there. And I know in that incident report there, you actually have some questions there, because sometimes it's hard to think of questions to ask. Like
Mm.
I asked a question of a player last week and I didn't know the answer. I just was kind of going off. I was like, who did you play last week? And then I'm like, I don't even know that. I just kind of rattled it off. But
Yeah.
having that support in a time when it's stressful and you're able to just work through a step-by-step process on your phone, for me, why I'm with you here doing this is to make things simpler for parents at that point in time.
Yep. Well said, mate. And look, I guess to summarize it, we're living in a digital age with analog tools right now around concussion. And the fact that PlayHQ have made that move is a fantastic one. But like we said, it's just scratching the surface, and it provides very little, if any, oversight and governance for a club post the return to play. So we were just able to do something around this that helps, in the moment, the sideline officials, trainers, mums, and everyone else, but also help the clubs and the leagues be able to benchmark things down the track. So, yeah,
How long
just
did you work on that? How long did you work on that little tagline there, mate? That was had a bit of Madonna to it, that one. Material girl. A little bit.
I didn't, mate. It
Yeah,
just,
that was good.
yeah, it's like so many
No,
things,
that
mate. It's
was
like how is something not digitized when everybody live with a phone and a computer in
yeah,
their pocket?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's
You're
that was this
you're a digital boy in a what is it in
in
an
an
analog world,
analog
mate.
world,
That's
mate.
it.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. Well,
That's it. That's
concussion's the
it.
analog exactly. It just seems so antiquated that we're expecting
I
if
love it.
if a trainer is doing everything right now, it means they've got to get a pen and paper out when an incident's occurred, and that's to me just seem yes. There's apps out there, but they're not integrated and they don't help clubs. We'll cover that in more detail later on. But just to wrap this up and round it out, guys. So from a club's perspective, but also from a child safety officer, concussion officer perspective, once you've done that assessment, and in the moment make a determination. When in doubt, sit them out, or if they've passed everything, if the trainers call us to return to play, then they do so. Then the club would create an incident report, and then as you can see on the right hand side there, where we actually follow, that there's a days counter, because obviously everybody's aware 21 days, and in there we've got different statuses where we also incorporate the stages of return to play, so the light aerobic exercise and the things that we'll cover in more detail in another episode. But all of that's in there because we just saw that there was a massive missing part and piece in community sport around how do they manage these systems, or how to manage these challenges of safeguarding and concussion management. And thanks to you, Cliff, mate. You've taught me so much in this space. You've helped me sort of think through how should this work functionally and logically. So whilst it's a platform coming from a generic safeguarding perspective, it's had real professional concussion thought and expertise go into it. And I just probably the last or second last slide here is to remind us why we're doing this. Yes, it should be putting our players' health and well-being at the forefront. Clearly, that's what drives us. But just a reminder to say, if there's any club presidents, CSOs, or officials out there, there's law firms that are now suing footy clubs. It's not a possibility now; it's a reality. Last year, I know of two. I think I think, Cliff, you mentioned there was 4 that you know of. And so this is a growing concern for clubs. And so whilst this should be a secondary justification for it, it is a real one. And so whether you need the stick or the carrot to take this stuff seriously, the reality is this is no longer optional to take concussion seriously. So back to you, mate. I've said enough. So what have we learnt in here? Just to wrap things up, to remind everyone what we've sort of covered, and obviously then as a throwaway, what we're going to probably cover in the next episode.
So we've learned about the PlayHQ guidelines, which are fantastic. It's a fantastic step in the right direction. So hats off to all the crew down at PlayHQ. That was not bad actually from me.
That was pretty good.
So no, well done, guys. Really love what you've done down there, and we're really here to support and work and hopefully partner with that in terms of the missing pieces. And for me, it's always been about, Adam, and what attracted me to your software was the ease of its use. It's a QR code, it's a phone, it's not a pair of goggles, it's not a mouth guard, it's not any, and I'm sure we're going to talk about those things. It's not an accelerometer in your helmet. Those things are, all really quite complicated. This is a simple step-by-step process that's aimed at helping parents, trainers, etc., on the day, in the moment, feel, as I say, confident and composed and supported in that moment. So, and to execute those game day processes with confidence and ease. And that's what I love about it. Obviously, we've learned about the first 24 hours. Get to your local concussion specialist. Start the process. We talked last week about the supplements you can start taking, such as creatine and magnesium, to help alleviate your symptoms. And there's also a lot of musculoskeletal work that needs to be done around whiplash that can help you, because there's a lot of people that have headaches, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days on, and that work needs to be done early on. So get down, see your local professional, get the ball rolling, get your diagnosis sorted, and get the support that you need. And then, I think that's what we want to get out of this here today is just those initial steps that then lead into that PlayHQ reporting. And then next week, I can't wait to get stuck into, because my wheelhouse really is around stepping people through and supporting people through that return to play process. Because, just saying it's not just sitting out 21 days. There's a 14-day symptom-free process. There's steps that you need to go through and be aware of to get back to playing. And what we're really, again, trying to do, it sounds like we're trying to do so many things, but I mean, but you're also trying to protect players that when it is time for you to go back, that you're going back as best as we possibly can get you with our knowledge as it stands today. Right. Yeah. So we said, Jeremy Howe. So Jeremy Howe on the weekend, we didn't touch on Jeremy Howe. A pretty hefty collision there. I don't know if there was, other than Jeremy Howe probably protecting himself a little bit more, I'm not too sure what else could have happened there. But we've said all along, we're not here to change the game. I love the game. As sickening as that hit was, we're not here to change the game. But I want to know what happens to Jeremy Howe now. What support does he get now? How is his brain different from little Timmy's brain down at Williamstown Juniors there? He's got to sit 21 days out. Let's not change the game. Let's support the players properly so that there's a decreased risk of them then getting hit again and then having to retire medically. That's what this really is also all about. So equipping parents with the tools to know when to remove a child or a player so that we don't have this rambling multiple 8 head knocks that it ends up with them having to stop playing the game that they love. Ultimately, that's what the Knock On Effect podcast is about for me.
Well said, buddy. Well said. And just reminded me, Paddy McCartan, Hamish McLaughlin on Unfiltered on Channel 7, one of the better shows where you've seen somebody bare their soul around the consequences of not understanding and not handling concussion. Not Paddy McCartan, sorry, Justin Kazitsky. Did a podcast with Hamish McLaughlin. If you haven't seen it, mate, check it out because it's very, very good. And so we're also, as we've talked about, we're going to get guests on here to talk about their experiences as well. So we'll get through, the informative, the education, the return to play, some of the things, and then we'll actually start bringing in some guests that can share their experience and tell us, how they overcame what is seen to be a great obstacle, but it's one that can be worked through if you handle it the right way. So thank you very much, mate. This has been awesome. We'll break this up, get it out soon. And now that you're back from the US, which you can tell us a little bit more about next episode, we'll be pushing these out more frequently. So thanks for your time, mate.
No worries, mate. Aussies on 3. Let's go.
Let's go.
See you guys.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. See you, mate.